Hey, hello, I'm Kråkan, also known as Scarecrow, and welcome to Closet Movie Rambles, where I talk about old movies that I found in my closet while cleaning. This week's movie is Matrix Revolutions. It's an action sci-fi from 2003. It's about 2 hours and 3 minutes long, starring Keanu Reeves, Carrie-Anne Moss, Hugo Weavings, and Lawrence Fishburne. And the movie starts with a hovercraft looking for another hovercraft because in this trilogy, in the second movie, the crew, one of the ship and crew went missing for some reason, and now they're out looking for it. And then cutting to Trinity watching over Neo, because in the second movie he stopped the Sentinel with just his hands, so his power has kind of grown beyond the Matrix. He can kind of feel things outside. By using his power to stopping a Sentinel, he basically fell into a coma. So Morpheus asked one of the other captains, Roland, to look for Neo's presence within the Matrix, and he can't find him. So they're really just trying to basically find hope. They don't really know what to do. And at this time, Seraph, which is the Oracle's protection program, kind of calls him up and tells him that the Oracle needs to talk. And then Neo wakes up in this kind of limbo situation. It's called Mobile Avenue, and it's like a train station. He wakes up there and he's kind of confused. He doesn't really know how he got there. And then coming to Trinity and Morpheus, going to with Seraph to see the Oracle, and she has changed. And they remark on this, and she has changed because she had to basically make some sacrifice in order to guide the one, in this case Neo, because she wants this war with the machine and meant to end, basically. And then the Oracle explains to Morpheus and Trinity that basically Neo is trapped between the Matrix and the real world. Then she doesn't know this train station or what it's called, but she knows that it's controlled by this program called the Train Man. So Seraph goes with him to find the Train Man. And cutting back to Neo, he's meeting up. He's woken up by this girl called Sati, which is she's a program without a purpose, but she's also on this Mobile Avenue with her father and mother. And then Neo talks to the parents of this program, basically Ramachandra, and he explains that they made a deal with the Frenchmen, because if you want something to leave the Matrix, you kind of have to go through the Frenchmen. That's how it works. It's like a import-export program, because they were facing deletion, and Ramachandra kind of explains that he loves his daughter very much, and it's just Neo remarks on this. Well, what does program know about love? Well, love is a word, and he loves his daughter very much. He doesn't really want to see her go, so he made a deal with the Frenchmen just to leave the Matrix. And then cutting to Morpheus, Trinity, and Seraph looking for the Train Man on a subway, and they find him, and there's this chase, and they almost catches up with him, but he jumps the rails and he kind of disappears. And then cutting to the Train Man sometime later, arriving at the Mobile Avenue, and Neo asks the couple, the parents, if he can carry their bags on this train ride, and they kind of go on, and Neo kind of gets stopped by the Train Man, and he says, "You don't belong in here," you know, or something like that. And Neo kind of says, "I don't want to hurt you," but the Train Man kind of explains that no, this is not how it works here. Down here, I'm God. I made this place. And Neo trying to enter the train, and the Train Man basically punch him through into this concrete wall or whatever, and he falls over, because this is not the Matrix, so there are other rules to abide by. And the chosen one is really more or less powerless here, so he's kind of trapped here. And then the train leaves, and then Neo kind of gets down on the track and he kind of runs after the train. So he goes in on one side, and then he comes out on the other. It's like he's trapped there. So that's the first part of the movie. And then cutting to Seraph, Trinity, and Morpheus entering the Frenchman's headquarters. And there's some fighting, and they make it up to their Merovingians club, I guess. And there, the Merovingian, the Frenchmen, ask them to just drop their guns, and they make a deal to get out of there alive, but they just want to talk to him, so to get an audience with him. And he kind of wants a deal, so for Neo, their savior, he basically wants the eyes of the Oracle, which is this kind of thing, the vision of the Oracle, basically, to see what she sees. But Trinity has had enough of this bullshit, so she pulls a gun from another guy and points it to the head of the skull of the Merovingian, the head, and she kind of changes the deal, your life or nothing, or something like that. And he agrees, of course. And later she goes and pick up Neo at the Mobile Avenue. And then Neo has to see the Oracle because he needs to know what he's supposed to do now. So he goes to see the Oracle, and Sati's there, and they're baking cookies. And the Oracle basically explains that the power of the One extends far beyond the reaches of the Matrix. That's why he can use the power outside of the Matrix. And she also says that everything that has a beginning has an end, and that's important later in the story. So basically, Neo needs to stop Smith because he's this program that's gone wild inside the Matrix. And he's basically changing things, and he's made multiple copies of himself and corrupted things. He kind of makes the Matrix in his own image. And then Bane wakes up on the ship, and he has basically been possessed by Smith. So there's this kind of when he was supposed to get out of the Matrix, they kind of pick up this phone and they kind of jack out, and they wake up in the real world. But Smith corrupted him in the second movie, so when he jacked out, basically Smith's consciousness is in the head of Bane, so he's basically possessed. And later Neo wakes up in the real world, and he needs time to process all these things that the Oracle has told him, because he knows what he needs to do, but he's not sure how to, or it's not really clear. And then Seraph arrives at the Oracle's place, and he tells her it's time to leave now, but she's not moving. So she asks Seraph to take Sati with him, and they go away and they try to escape the building, but Smith is already in the building with multiple copies of himself, and they try to hide from him, but he finds them, and then Smith goes to see the Oracle, and he talks to her about all these things, and finally he makes a copy of himself or corrupts the Oracle, basically making him part of her and everything. And there is this evil, maniacal laughter. And then after Bane wakes up on the ship, he's interrogated by Roland and a bunch of other staff, and they try to get some information of him, because he's also been in this coma and there's little to go on what really happened. And they ask Bane about this. He has some cuts on his arm, and they are self-inflicted. And basically what happened in the second movie was that he inflicted himself with this wound, kind of wound. He cut himself basically with Smith. Doesn't like this meat bag that he's possessed, kind of this weird kind of transcending thing. And then Neo has a vision of the source, so he basically he now knows where he needs to go. He needs to go to the Machine City and go to this light source, basically, to the main source. That's what he needs to go. And then the crew finds the missing ship, the Logos, and also Ghost and Niobe and the crew. And they power up, basically, recharge it. And then cutting to Commander Locke in Zion, basically arguing with the council about the imminent breach of the the mechanical army, which is basically banging at the front door at this point. So they need to amass some troops to basically stand a chance. And then you cut to a young man dropping some high caliber clips. And this young man gets confronted by this Captain Mifune, which he's basically the captain of the. There's like these big kind of mechs that looks like gorillas or something, but instead of hands they have like these large high caliber machine guns. The basic defense of Sion, the only defense except for the turrets. So basically this kid drops these clips and they get scattered on the floor, and Mifune kind of gets angry and yells at him. And he realized that he's just a kid and he's just too young, and the kid lies about his age. He says that he's 18, and Mifune says, if you were 16, I might have believed you. And the kid says, yes, I'm 16. And they say, well, you're too young for this. You can't join. You're too young. And then the kid says, the machine doesn't care how old I am. They will kill me regardless. In that you're right. And then he gets recruited, basically. And then the Nebuchadnezzar jump starts the logos. And Smith is changing something. And there's something wrong with the Matrix again. And then the crew discuss what to do. And Neo explains that he has had a vision and he needs for one of the ships to stay behind so he can go to the source. And the captains don't like this because they need every ship available in this upcoming war. But Neo kind of hands him her ship, basically. And there's some arguments about that. And cutting to Bane getting a shot. But instead of taking a shot, he kills the nurse, Maggie in this case. And then cutting to Neo and Trinity, and basically Neo telling Trinity that this time they might not make it back. And then Neo says goodbye to Morpheus. And then the Nebuchadnezzar leaves. And then Neo and Trinity try to start the ship, but something is wrong. And Trinity goes down to the maintenance room and check it out, but Bane is there and he kind of jumps her. And then Nolan, Niobe and Ghost and Morpheus realizes that Maggie is killed, and that it was Bane that killed Maggie, basically. But they can't go back now. They're heading for Sion. So basically Neo and Trinity is on their own. And Neo confronts Bane after checking for what's happening to Trinity, basically. And then Bane drops Trinity down a hatch. And then basically what happens is that Bane and Neo fight, and Bane gets the upper hand and he holds Neo at gunpoint. And then Neo realizes that this is not Bane. Bane is being possessed by Smith. And then Trinity cuts the power. There is some more fighting, and Neo gets the upper hand, but Bane kind of grabs this cut power cord and he kind of uses it to blind Neo, basically burning out his eyes. So Neo is blind now. He's stumbling around in the dark. And Bane kind of picks up this pipe and tries to hit him, but because Neo is the one, he kind of sees it, so he kind of blocks the pipe in some way and breaks Bane's arm, and then he basically sees the image of Smith within Bane, and he kind of destroys it. So you can see like power and flows and stuff like that because of he's the one. Otherwise he would be blind as a bat, basically. And then we cut to Commander Locke in Sion prepping for the war, basically with the APUs and all the armory and stuff. And then cutting to the supporters, and C and her friend, they agree that one will load and the other one will just keep shooting, because they need to take out these kind of drills that are drilling down into the core of Sion. And then we're cutting to the Nebuchadnezzar ghost driving, and there's like this huge like sort of stim, like a group of sentinels hovering over their area where they're in, so they have to be really quiet, so they kind of turn off some of the engines, so the ship kind of goes down very low, and they try to sneak by them, but some of the hover pads kind of get stuck in the rubble, and it makes the noise, and the Sentinels go after them. And so they full power to the engines, and they just go by, and Niobe and Morpheus takes the helmet, and the other ones go through the turrets. And then cutting to the APUs in the hangar, and the machines drilling down, and the support team try to take out these drills, but more are on the way. And then the Sentinels finally swarm the hangar, and so the support team kind of breaks one of the drills down, and the Nebuchadnezzar drives through the to the service tunnels, chased by Squid and Sentinels. And then the support try to break one of the drills, and C escapes, but her friend dies in the process. And Niobe tries to contact Locke via radio, but one of the Sentinels has broken the radio, so there is no contact. And then finally Locke realizes that there's this ship coming, and he also knows that it carries one of these EMPs, and electromagnetic pulse that will take out all the squids. And then Locke realized that he needs to have Gate 3 open for the Nebuchadnezzar to get access to the hangar. So he contacts Mifune to open the gate. And he goes for it, but his machine gun is stuck. So the kid goes out to kind of fix the problem, and he kind of needs to reload his mech, basically, Mifune's mech. So he comes up from behind and tries to push these big clips into the machine, and it gets stuck. And Mifune tells the kid to get out of here, but the kid doesn't give up, so he kicks it in, and it kind of gets in, and Mifune kind of fires up all the force of this swarming kind of Sentinel storm, and then Mifune gets attacked and shredded by these machines. And then he's all shredded up, and his face is all bleeding, and he tells the kid that the hovercraft is coming, and he needs to open Gate 3, and that he can do it and everything. And so the kid takes Mifune's APU, and he goes for the gates. And then Link on the Nebuchadnezzar, he arms the AMP ready for whatever comes. And then another Sentinel jumps the kid while he's on the way to Gate 3, but C, Link's sister or girlfriend or whatever it was, or friend, saves him via this other kind of electrical gun, and he shoots down the chain. And then Nebuchadnezzar crashes into the hangar, and they fire the EMP, and the machines stop working, but also the technology which is in the hangar is basically dead because of the electromagnetic pulse. And then later Locke confronts the captains on the Nebuchadnezzar on what they've done. And they say, like, we saved the hangar. No, you didn't save it, says Locke. You just handle it, all and every these things to the machine on a silver platter, basically. And then the captains are in front of the council try to explain why they gave the ship to Neo, basically, that this was the believable choice. They might just end the war with Neo going to the Machine City and the Source, which is something they don't understand, really. And then cutting to Neo and Trinity flying over the Harvester's field, where all these humans are in these kind of pods where the machine extract the energy from them, which is basically from the first movie where they start to free these first survivors that basically become the rebellion in the first place. So they fly over these fields of these harvester machines, and Neo sees the path. They have just to follow the power line because that will lead them to the city. So they just go for the power lines. And then the Sentinels revive a broken drill, and they start drilling down to the last human shelter. And Locke informs the council that they only have 2 hours left until a total breach. And the Neo and Trinity goes to the Machine City, but they get attacked by these small mechanical flying bugs. Neo uses his power to stop them, but then some Sentinels, squids join them, start to tearing the ship apart. And then Neo tells Trinity just fly right up to the sky. And they do, and the squids kind of fall off, get struck by lightning and stuff. And then they reach the top of the clouds, and Trinity sees the sun for the first time. And then it goes up, and the hovercraft kind of plummets down, and the engine basically dies, and it starts to plummet down. And then she tried to restart the engine, but it fails. And then he got it just when it's about to crash. She kind of gets the engine up, so they get this slow breakdown, and then they crash. And then Trinity is more or less pinned down by the rubble, and Neo is blind, and he kind of crawls to her, and she says, I can't come with you. And he realized that she has been pierced through his stomach and other internal organs. She can't move, she's basically dying. And they have this emotional talk, and I think she dies, and he's on his own. And then he kind of crawls out of the wreckage and goes to the machine city. And he gets confronted by this huge talking machine, which actually is part of a lot of small machines that form like a baby face that talks to him. It's kind of a weird thing with a very masculine voice. And then Neo makes a deal with the machine and basically says, like, if I stop Smith, I can save your world, but I want one thing, I want peace. I want this world war to be over. And then the machine says, like, what if you can't stop him? What if you fail, basically? And Neo says, I won't. And then the machine jacks him into the Matrix, basically. And then cutting back to Zion, and all the machines kind of stop drilling just before they enter the last shelter, and they kind of fly up, and just like a swarm of bees or some kind of insect thing. So they're just idling now. They're waiting for Neo to do this one thing, and there's no point. There's this truce for now. And then cutting to the Matrix, and there's this like black kind of rainy place now, very very monotone green colors, and there's a lot of copies of Smith just standing everywhere. And Neo kind of joins this big street with tall skyscrapers, and he confronts this one Smith that goes out from the crowd, and he kind of says, like, Mr. Anderson, welcome back, you like what I've done with the place? And there's like this rain and everything, and Neo says that it ends tonight, and since Smith has more or less the eyes of the Oracle, he kind of says, well, I know it does, I've seen it. And then they kind of fight, and there's this power struggle between them because they're kind of equal, so they fight, and then they fly up into the sky, and they kind of fight like Superman or something. And then Neo gets the short end of the stick, and he kind of gets plummeted down to the asphalt, where they just make this big crater. But there's something wrong. Neo is supposed to be dead, but he rises up. And then Smith kind of says, like, why, Mr. Anderson? Why do you persist? Because I choose to. And then there's this drawn-out fight between the two. And then Neo gets knocked down again. And then Smith has this revelation where he says something like, wait a minute, I've seen this before. I stand right here, and I'm supposed to say something. And then he says that one line from the Oracle in the beginning, like, everything that has a begin has an end. And then Smith realized that it's a trap, because everything was kind of planned all along, because he started to become something, and then things changes, and basically what he started is now about to end. And then Neo rises up again, and Smith realized that this was a trick all along. And it's like, this is impossible, says Smith. No, it's not impossible, says Neo. And he uses a Smith line like it's inevitable. And then Smith tries to copy into Neo and corrupt him. And of course he does it. And then he asks if it's over. And the other Smith that recently was Neo kind of nods. And then the machine pulls one last trick on him. They infuse the body of Neo with all this kind of electrical energy, or I don't know what it is really. But it basically makes all the Smith clones or copies just explode. And this kind of weird kind of thing where they all kind of falls apart, and then Neo dies basically, and the machines in the real world takes Neo's body to the source, and there is peace. And the one kid from the earlier that loaded Mifune's mech runs around in this cave, the last shelter, and he talks to a counselor and the people, and he says like the war is over and everybody rejoice. And then back in the Matrix, everything is reformed, and the architect which is this represented by this old man with a white beard. He confronts the Oracle, and the architect is basically this program that built the Matrix, kind of balanced out everything, made everything work. And he goes to see the Oracle and talk to her, because now there is a truce. And they talk a bit how long they think this peace will last. And then the Oracle says, as long as it have to. And what about the survivors, those who want to be free from the Matrix? And the architect kind of says, yes, if they want to be free, they can be freed. And then the architect leaves, and then Seraph and Sati returns, and there's this beautiful like sunrise. And Sati basically made it for Neo, this one last beautiful thing. And that's the end of the movie. There's one big problem with these kind of movies, like big franchise movies, big kind of... There's this awful lot of action scenes. There's an awful lot of philosophical things and religious iconography. I talk about this in the first review I made, actually, in the Matrix one. And it's really hard to dissect this movie because there's so many layers. But as I said with the first Matrix review that I did, if you see it like an action movie, it's fine. And if you're looking for something else, like a deeper meaning, it's there too. So, can I recommend this movie? Absolutely. Because it's just an action movie. The only problem I have with it, it's like too much like icing on the cake, or how you say it, like it's just piling on top of each other, like all these action moments and all these action scenes. And it really doesn't need to be that long, but it kind of has to, because it's the finale. So that's the only grudge I have against it. It's too long, but otherwise it's a really good movie. So when I did this review, I did like 3 sittings just to like get it all down. But yeah, but if it's on TV, or if you have it in your bookcase or in your closet or whatever, watch it. Yeah. Thanks for watching, and have a good one. Take care.